The sky was dark and quiet. 2 pale moons floated above a dead forest. Ashes drifted slowly through the air like snow. In the middle of the ruins, a small fire burned weakly inside a broken building. A mother and her daughter huddled together for warmth, hiding in silence. The mother's name was Kira. Her eyes were tired, her hands shaking. Beside her, her little girl, Clary, only 10 years old. Leaned against her side, they were not human, but their faces looked almost the same except for the glowing veins under their skin. They were from a species called the Viren, and they were running from their own people. Kira listened to the wind. Every crack of a branch made her heart race. They had escaped from a secret lab 3 days ago. Terry had been part of a strange experiment. Kira didn't know what they did to her, but she knew it was dangerous, unnatural, evil. They were hunted now, not by strangers, but by the same scientists who once called Kira doctor. She had betrayed them to save her daughter, and now they wanted both of them dead. The fire crackled low, casting soft red light on the girl's face. Tilary's skin was pale blue, her eyes wide with fear and sadness. She didn't speak all day, but now she moved her lips close to her mother's ear and whispered, "Mom, something is growing on my back." Kira froze, her breath caught in her throat. Slowly, she pulled the blanket away and turned her daughter's back toward the firelight. Her hands trembled as she lifted the shirt. At first, it looked like bruises, but then she saw it. Thin, glowing lines, like roots, were spreading under the skin. The veins moved slowly, like they were alive, pulsing with light. Something dark was pushing against her spine from inside, like it wanted to come out. "No. No, no, no," Kira whispered, stepping back. Her knees hit the ground as her vision spun. She covered her mouth, tears rising fast. This was not just a reaction, not just a sickness. This was the project. They said they stopped it years ago. But they lied. The thing they put inside her child was still alive, and it was waking up. "Is it bad?" Talari asked, her voice shaking. Kira tried to speak, but no words came. She reached out and pulled the child into her arms, holding her tight. "It's going to be okay." She lied. "We'll fix this." But deep inside, she knew. It was not that simple. Whatever was growing inside her child's it wasn't human. It wasn't Viren. It was something else. Suddenly, a strange warmth spread across Kira's hands. She looked down and saw her daughter's back glowing brighter. Not just light but movement, like waves under the skin. Talari cried out in pain. But she didn't scream. She held on to her mother and whispered again, "I hear voices, Mom. They're calling me." Kira's eyes widened. She had heard stories, quiet rumors in the lab, about a secret voice, an ancient one that could speak through the flesh. It was part of an old Viren legend about creatures called seed-born queens. They were not born, they were made. Made to rule, made to control, and made to destroy. "No," Kira said again, "they can't have you. They won't take you." But she knew if the growth continued, her child would become something else. Something not even love could stop. She had one hope left, a man she once knew. A human living far beyond the border forests. A man who owed her a life. Maybe he could help. Maybe he still remembered her. Maybe. Kira stood up, shaky and cold, and wrapped her child in a coat. She packed what little food they had left and lifted Talari onto her back. The girl was breathing softly, her forehead glowing faintly. With every step, Kira felt the weight of fear growing heavier, but she would not stop, not now, not ever. No one would take her daughter. Not even fate. Outside, the wind howled through the trees. A small blinking light passed through the clouds high above a tracking drone. It scanned the ruins, searching for the runaway queen. It missed them by seconds, as Kira disappeared in two. The forest with her child, the fire behind them died, the ashes settled. The ground quieted again, but in the silence, if one listened closely, a voice still whispered. It was not the child, and it was not the wind. It was the thing inside her. And it was just beginning to wake up. Asterisk, the forest was silent, except for the soft crunch of Kira's feet on the frozen ground. She held Tlori close to her chest, feeling the faint warmth from the child's back. Every step hurt her muscles, every breath burned her lungs. But she didn't stop, not when her daughter's life was in danger. Not when the thing inside her was waking up. The night stretched long and cold. Kira's mind wandered into memories she had buried for years. She was once a respected genetic scientist. Not just any scientist, but one of the lead developers behind Project Seedborn. Back then, it was called a dream, a way to protect the Viren people from extinction, but it quickly turned into something else. They took orphaned children from war zones. They lied to the public. Said they were saving them, healing them. In truth, they were using them as vessels for something. Ancient, a biological queen, born not from an egg, but from flesh. And the seed they planted inside each child was more than DNA. It was living memory, a voice, a mind that waited to grow. Tlori had been among the last group chosen. Kira had selected her herself, not knowing her true parentage. Not until the day she looked at the girl's blood report and saw her own DNA matched. That was the moment everything changed. That was the day she stole her child and ran. Now, years later, her failure had returned. The growth inside Tlori was spreading faster than expected. It was not supposed to activate until the child turned 16, but something triggered it early. Maybe the stress, maybe the environment, or maybe it had chosen to wake up. Kira stumbled through the woods until she reached an old tunnel entrance, a collapsed rail line long forgotten by both humans and Viren. She slipped inside, the darkness swallowing them both. Her breathing slowed. The air was cold and heavy. She lit a small flashlight, revealing rusted walls and broken steel beams. They were safe, here for now. She laid Tlori down on a blanket and checked her back. The skin looked worse than before, veins glowing like hot wires, bones shifting unnaturally. Kira wanted to cry, but she held herself together. She had to be strong for Tlori. And for what came next, suddenly, the child twitched and gasped. Her eyes opened, but they were glowing gold, not silver. She looked at her mother and whispered in a deep voice, "Where is the hive?" Kira froze. "Tlori," she said, "you're dreaming. It's okay." But the girl only stared, unblinking. "I must return." She said, "I am not complete." Then her head dropped, and her breathing returned to normal. Kira pressed a hand to her chest, trying to calm down. It had spoken. Not Tlori, but the thing inside her, and it was remembering. That meant the seed had started phase 2 memory activation. Soon, it would try to take full control. Kira needed help. And there was only one person left who might still care. A human named James Carter. He was once part of the Viren-Human Alliance during the Frontier Wars. A soldier, but also a friend. He saved her once, and she had saved him back, last she heard. He lived in the mountains north of the abandoned rail line. If she could reach him, maybe he had the tools, the medicine, the courage to help. She rapped. Her daughter again kissed her forehead and began the journey through the tunnel. For hours, she walked with only the sound of water dripping and the distant echo of her own footsteps. But then, far behind them, a red light blinked. Something was moving through the tunnel. A drone, quiet, scanning, hunting. It had picked up the genetic signature of the queen child. It moved silently. Crawling on the ceiling like an insect, its orders were clear. Recover the specimen. If not possible, destroy the vessel. Kira didn't know it was there. But Tlori suddenly opened her eyes again and whispered, "They're coming." Kira stopped walking. "Who's coming?" she asked. "The ones who made me, the child." Said they want me back? Kira quickened her pace, fear returning to her chest. She could not let them catch her. Not again. Not when her daughter's mind was slipping between two identities. Not when every hour brought them closer to losing her forever. She didn't know yet that the seed inside Tlary was not just a weapon. It was a throne, and soon the galaxy would be asked to kneel before its Starborn. The morning was quiet in the mountain valley. Snow covered the earth like a white blanket. Birds chirped softly, unaware of the danger hiding behind the trees. At the edge of the woods stood a lonely farmhouse made of steel and old wood. Smoke rose gently from the chimney, and solar panels shimmered in the cold light. Inside, a man sat alone, sipping hot tea from a chipped mug. His name was James Carter, a human, a war veteran. A man trying to forget his past. His eyes were sharp, always watching, and his left arm was metal from shoulder to wrist. He had fought in the Viren human wars, seen cities burn, seen peace break. Now he lived far from all that, in the quiet mountains, growing food and fixing old machines. That morning, something strange caught his eye. Through the window, in the snow, he saw movement, a figure, limping, holding something in her arms. He narrowed his eyes and grabbed his rifle. No one ever came here not without a reason. He stepped outside, boots crunching in the snow. As the figure came closer, he saw her face. It was pale blue, her hair long and silver, her eyes wild with fear. She collapsed just a few steps from him, clutching a small bundle. He ran forward, kneeling beside her. "Kira," he whispered in shock. "It's you." Kira looked up, her lips dry and cracked. "Help her," she gasped. "Please, help her." She pushed the child into his arms before fainting into the snow. James stared down at the little girl, confused and alarmed. She was not human, but she was young, fragile. Shaking from the cold, he saw strange patterns glowing. Through her clotheslines that pulsed slowly under her skin, something was wrong. Something very wrong. Without wasting time, he lifted both mother and daughter and carried them into the house. He laid them on warm blankets by the fire. Boiled water, crushed herbs, treated Kira's wounds. She woke hours later, confused but safe. James sat beside her, staring at her with a mix of anger and concern. "You better start talking," he said, voice low. "What's growing inside that child?" Kira didn't speak at first, only stared at the fire. Then she looked at her daughter, who now lay peacefully on the couch, her back still glowing beneath her coat. "She's mine," Kira whispered. "And she's changing." James frowned. "Changing into what?" Kira took a breath, her voice shaking. "Into a queen," she said. "One that was never supposed to wake up." She told him everything. About the lab, the project, the Seedborn program. About how they planted ancient hive memory into young bodies. How the seed was supposed to grow slowly, safely, until the host was ready. But something went wrong. Tlary was waking too early. And the voice inside her was getting stronger. James listened silently, eyes locked on the girl. He had heard rumors during the war about alien queens made in labs. Weapons in the shape of children, but he never believed it till now. He walked over to Tlary and gently removed the coat. The sight made him freeze. Her back had split slightly along the spine. Soft golden light leaked through, and something thin and folded moved under the skin. Like wings, but her face was calm, even peaceful. As if she were sleeping through a dream. A bad dream, waiting to become real. "She needs help," Kira said. "Standing up weakly, medical help, equipment, something to slow the growth." James shook his head slowly. "Out here, I don't have anything advanced, but I have something better," he said. Walking toward a locked cabinet, he opened it and pulled out an old data core, blinking with a green light. "This," he said, "belonged to a Viren bioengineer I captured once. He begged for his life and gave me this. I never used it, but maybe now is the time." Kira's eyes widened. "That's a seed control interface." It might work if we can link it to her nervous system. James nodded. We'll try tonight. As night fell, James prepared the tools. He cleaned wires, powered up the control unit, and connected sensors. He placed the device near Tulari's head. Her body flinched, her eyes snapped open, golden and glowing. She didn't speak not with her mouth. Instead, her voice echoed inside James's head. I remember you. She said you killed one of us. James stepped back, stunned. The girl's voice was calm. But behind it was something ancient, something cold. You were strong, she added. We respect that. Then her eyes closed, and she fell asleep. Again, James looked at Kira, his heart pounding, that thing inside her. He whispered, It's not just waking up, it's learning, and far above, in the sky. A fleet of ships turned slowly toward the planet. They had received a signal. A queen was rising, and they were coming to claim her. The wind outside howled against the farmhouse walls. Inside, the fire crackled low, casting flickering shadows across the wooden floor. Tulari lay still on the couch, her small frame glowing softly under the blanket. James sat nearby, rifle close at hand, eyes wide open. Kira stood near the window, watching the woods, her heart full of fear and guilt. Neither of them had spoken much since the last event, since the moment the child spoke without moving her lips. A voice had filled the room, a voice that didn't belong to her. It was calm, old, and full of power, and it remembered James. What does it mean? James asked. Breaking the silence, she said she remembered me. But she's never seen me before. Kira turned slowly, her voice soft. That wasn't Tulari speaking, that was the queen inside her. She remembers all hosts before her. The seed holds not just DNA, holds history. Every queen who came before. James leaned forward, staring into the fire. I fought those queens in the frontier wars. I saw what they did to whole planets. But this is a child. She's innocent. Kira nodded, tears in her eyes. Yes, she whispered. But the queen inside her is not. And that queen is waking up faster than we expected. Her memories are leaking into Tulari's mind. She may not be able to fight it for long. Just then, Tulari stirred. She sat up slowly. Eyes half closed, James and Kira rushed to her side. The child blinked and looked at them, her voice weak. Mom. It hurts. What hurts, my love? Kira asked, brushing her hair back. My head, she whispered, and my back. She turned slightly, and they saw the glowing lines spreading down her spine, like veins of fire. Her skin shimmered like gold. Her bones moved beneath it. Then she looked at James. Her expression suddenly blank. Her eyes turned fully golden. Without moving her lips, the voice returned. The hive remembers. It said, you burned our ships, destroyed our nests. But you cannot stop what is already growing. James stood frozen, the rifle slipping from his hand. Tulari, he said, are you in there? There was silence. Then she blinked, and her normal silver eyes returned. She gasped, looking scared and confused. What happened? She asked. Why are you staring at me? Kira pulled her close, hugging her tightly. It's okay, she whispered, though it wasn't. James looked at the device on the table, the seed control interface. He had tried to connect it earlier, but the system refused. The queen is resisting it, he said. She's aware of our plan. She doesn't want control taken away. Kira stood up, her hands clenched. Then we have to try harder. She's my daughter, not their puppet. James nodded, already opening his old tech chest. I still have some dampeners, he said, from the war. If we can install neural blockers, we might be able to hold the queen back just long enough to let Tulari grow stronger. But time was not on their side. As the two adults worked, Tulari sat quietly on the couch, holding her knees. Inside her mind, she saw images, cities burning, Ships falling from the sky, she saw alien queens speaking in forgotten languages. And worst of all, she saw herself standing above a pile of bones, giving orders. No. She whispered to herself, "That's not me. I don't want to be like that." But the voice replied gently, "You were born for this. You are not a child, you are a throne." Talari cried silently, afraid to tell her mother. Afraid to tell James she didn't want to hurt anyone. But she could feel the queen getting stronger every hour, every time she slept. The memories grew louder, and in the dark corners of her soul, something sharp waited to take control. Suddenly, a loud beep echoed through the house. James jumped up and looked at his scanner. "Incoming signal," he said. "Long-range transmission." They found her. Kira rushed to the monitor, eyes wide on the screen. A symbol flashed a dark spiral with 3 red stars. Her face turned pale. "That's the Hive Council," she whispered. "They're coming." James tightened his grip on the rifle. "We don't have much time," he said. "If they land here, they'll take her or kill her." Kira looked at her daughter, who sat quietly now, golden light glowing faintly under her skin. "I won't let them," she said, her voice shaking but full of fire. "I will protect her even from herself if I have to." James nodded, stepping beside her. "Then we fight," and somewhere deep inside, Lorray the Queen smiled. "Let them come," the voice whispered. "The hive always kneels before its queen." Snow fell hard that evening, covering the valley in silence. The wind picked up, howling like wolves across the mountains. But inside the farmhouse, the air was heavy with fear, not from the storm, but from what was coming through it. James checked the security cameras again, his jaw tight. 3 gunships, he said, fast, low altitude. "They'll be here in minutes." Kira stood by the window, holding Claria's hand. The child looked calm. Her golden eyes didn't blink. She was awake, but it wasn't just Talari inside anymore. The queen was watching through her eyes, waiting, learning. "They won't ask questions," Kira said softly. "They'll come to take her by force, or worse, burn the entire house down." James nodded, pulling out a steel case and opening it. Inside were old war tools, grenades, EMP arrows, smoke charges. "This place may be a farm," he said, "but it's still mine. They'll have to fight to take her." Talari looked up at him, her voice quiet but steady. "You'll die if you fight them." James glanced at her, surprised by the calm in her voice. "Maybe," he said, "but dying to protect you is better than watching them win." Outside, the roar of engines grew louder. Snow blew wildly as the first gunship descended, kicking up dust and white powder. Black armor-clad soldiers stepped out, Viren hunters, tall and cruel-looking. Each one wore a red visor and carried weapons designed to neutralize or kill queens. They moved in silence, like machines. Their leader, a female with silver armor and glowing tattoos, stepped forward and raised a hand. "House surrounded," she shouted, her voice echoing. "Turn over the seedborn and you will live." James smirked. Opened the window just enough to shout back. "Not happening." "Last warning," she replied coldly. "We will not negotiate with humans." James pressed a button, and the side of the farmhouse exploded outward, releasing a thick wall of smoke and static. The EMP grenade disabled 2 drones instantly. Kira pulled Talari into the basement. Locking the steel hatch behind them, James ran to the side door. Rifle ready, his eyes narrowed, breath calm. War had returned, and he was ready. The first group of soldiers entered through the front, careful and quiet, but James was already above them. Hiding in the attic, he dropped a flash bomb and jumped down, taking 2 out before they could fire. But there were many more. In the basement, Talari began to tremble. Kira held her tight, but the girl's skin was glowing again, brighter than before. "I can hear them," Talari whispered. All of them. They're afraid of me. Kira touched her forehead, feeling the heat. The seed inside her was growing faster, pushing toward full activation. Her spine arched and her mouth opened, but it wasn't a scream. It was a pulse. A deep humming sound filled the air like the roar of insects. Upstairs, the soldiers stopped moving, eyes wide, weapons lowering. They looked around, confused, then terrified. Their visors glitched, their hands shook. They started backing away. James looked toward the ceiling. Eyes wide, what the hell was that? Down in the basement, Talari stood on her own, breathing slowly. The hive responds, she said softly. Even now, Kira stepped back, unsure if she was still speaking to her daughter or the queen. Are you? Still you, she asked. Talari turned. And for a moment, just a moment, her eyes looked like a stranger's. Then she smiled faintly. I don't know, she whispered. But I don't want to hurt anyone. Upstairs, James was reloading. When he saw something strange, the soldiers were kneeling. One by one, their leader dropped her weapon and said in a voice full of shock, "She is awake. She called us." James lowered his gun, watching in disbelief as they all placed their weapons on the ground. "We didn't come to kill the queen," the leader said. "We came to test if she could command." Kira climbed out of the basement, standing in the hallway as the cold wind blew in. She looked at the soldiers, confused and angry. "You came here to provoke her," she said, "to see if she'd awaken." The leader nodded, and she did. "She has more power than we expected." Kira walked up to her, eyes full of rage. "She's just a child. She didn't choose this." The leader didn't answer. Instead, she looked at James. "She has passed the first test, but the council will not accept her yet. They are coming now, in full force." James stepped forward, blocking her path. "Then tell them this," he growled. "We're ready. We won't let her be used." The soldiers left silently, fading into the snow as the second and third ships rose and vanished into the sky. Talari stepped outside, wrapped in a coat, her golden eyes scanning the horizon. She looked at her mother and James, her voice calm but sad. "They're coming. A whole fleet." Kira hugged her tightly. "We'll fight," she said, "or we'll run." But deep inside, the queen inside Talari smiled, because she was no longer running. For the first time, they were coming to her. The snowstorm had passed, but the sky remained heavy and gray. Inside the farmhouse, silence had returned. Kira sat near the fire, holding a warm cup in her shaking hands. James stood by the door, cleaning his rifle out of habit. Neither spoke, because upstairs, something had begun to change. Something that could not be undone. Clary was in the attic, lying on a bed of soft blankets. Her body glowed faintly, golden lines covering her skin like vines. She had stopped eating, stopped speaking. She was asleep, but not dreaming. She was remembering. Inside her mind, 1,000 voices whispered, queens from before her, memories from battles across the stars, mothers, generals, monsters. They all lived inside the seed. She saw it all, the rise of the hive, the fall of worlds, the power, the fear, the loneliness. And then she saw herself, not a child, not a queen, but something in between. Something new, suddenly. Her eyes opened, glowing like twin suns. She sat up slowly, her spine shifting, bones cracking gently beneath her skin. Her shoulders itched then burned. Two long, soft structures pushed outward, breaking through the skin, not wings, but something close. Golden extensions, like folded silk laced with energy, pulsing softly. She didn't cry, didn't scream. She simply breath-tanned with each breath. The room warmed. Downstairs, James felt it first. The heat, the pressure, like standing under a strong sun. He dropped his tools and looked up. "It's starting," he whispered. Kira stood slowly, heart pounding. She rushed up the stairs and opened the attic door. What she saw made her stop and fall to her knees. Teleri stood in the center of the room, eyes glowing, arms outstretched, light danced across her skin. Her hair floating gently as if underwater. She was no longer just a child. She was becoming a queen. Kira, James called from behind. Is she still? Your daughter. Kira couldn't answer. She stepped forward slowly, whispering, Teleri. Please, can you hear me? Tally turned to her, eyes soft, voice gentle. I hear everything now, she said. Every voice, every queen, every thought. But I'm still me. Mom, I remember your stories, your hands, your voice. I'm not lost, not yet. Kira ran forward and hugged her tightly. She could feel the warmth in her daughter's body, strong and calm. Not burning, Teleri hugged her back, whispering, I don't want to be what they made me. I want to be what you made me. James stepped closer, unsure if he should. Speak, then don't lead the hive, he said. Destroy it. But Teleri shook her head. No, she said. That's not the way. If I destroy the hive, they will never stop hunting. But if I take my place at the top, I can change everything. Kira stared at her, eyes wide. You want to lead them? I have to, Teleri said. If I don't, someone else will, and they will not be kind. They will not be human. Suddenly, a flash of light appeared in the sky. Outside, James rushed to the window and stared upward. A ship, he said. Big 1V Royal class. They're landing. Tally closed her eyes, reaching out with her mind. She could feel them. Dozens of Minds warriors, scientists, council judges. They had come not to welcome her but to test her, to see if she was worthy of the hive crown. If not, they would erase her hand, everything nearby. Kira grabbed her daughter's hand. You don't have to face them, she said. We can run again. But Teleri shook her head slowly. No, Mom, she said. Running is what they expect. I'm not their weapon, and I'm not their victim. I'm something new. She stepped outside into the snowy field. The wind blew her silver hair around her shoulders. The golden folds on her back shimmered like living fire. The large ship hovered above the treetops. Casting a deep shadow over the land, a platform lowered. And figures began to appear. Armored, cold, James and Kira stood behind her. Tense, ready to fight. But Teleri raised a hand and whispered, No weapons. This is not a war. Not yet. The lead counselor stepped forward. Robes flowing, eyes sharp. You carry the blood, he said, but do you carry the will? Teleri looked up at him, unafraid. I carry the memory, she replied, but I carry my own mind too. I will not be your puppet. I will not be your queen of war. I will be queen of something new. The counselor studied her carefully. Then he bowed his head slightly. Then speak your first command, he said. Let us see if the hive listens. Teleri turned her gaze to the sky. Her eyes glowed brighter than ever before. She opened her mouth and sang. It was not a song of music, but of command. A signal, deep and powerful, vibrating through the ground and air. Across the stars, drones stopped, ships paused. Armies halted. The hive had heard their new queen. She spoke just 3 words. Peace begins now. The snow stopped falling. The sky cleared, showing a pale sun hanging above the silent valley. Teleri stood at the center of a wide field, her golden skin glowing, her eyes burning with calm fire. Behind her, Kira held her breath, standing, with James, both ready for whatever came next. Before her, the Council of the Hive watched, unmoving, waiting for her command. The ancient song she had sung still echoed through the sky. It was a signal, not just to the hive on this planet, but to all across the stars, a voice, a pulse, a claim. For the first time in centuries, a seed-born queen had awakened on her own terms. And she had spoken a word the hive did not understand: peace. You have their attention, the counselor said. His voice flat, but they will not follow peace without strength, will you? Fight your sisters. Tlari shook her head slowly. I don't have to, she said, if I lead them. I will show them something better. You are still a child. He said, frowning. You feel love, fear, weakness. Those are not queenly traits. But they are human, she said, stepping forward. And I am not just Viren anymore. I am what you created and what you failed to destroy. I remember everything. I remember death, fire. Warren, I choose something different. She raised her voice, speaking into the sky. To all those who hear me, she called, I am not your weapon. I am not your code. I am Talari, daughter of Kira, raised by love, taught by pain, and I say the hive will not burn anymore. There was silence, long and deep. The council members looked at each other, confused and unsure. Never before had a queen refused the path of conquest. Never had one declared peace with her full mind open, but the hive was listening. And more than that, they were pausing. That alone had never happened before. James stepped beside her, whispering, You stop them. They're actually listening to you. Kira stood tall, proud tears in her eyes. My daughter, she whispered. You're doing it. Clary smiled, but her body trembled. The transformation had taken so much from her energy, strength, warmth. She had stood strong long enough to speak her truth, but the power was not endless. Her knees buckled slightly. And James caught her before she fell. She needs rest, he said. She's still a child inside. But the counselor stepped forward again. If she cannot stand, she cannot rule. Kira stepped between them, her voice fierce. Then maybe you don't deserve her. She stood while bleeding. She chose peace when war was easy. She is more than any of you. The counselor stared at her. Then at the child queen in James's arms, he turned away, lifting his wrist to speak into a comlink. Prepare. The fleet, he said. She has passed the test. Kira blinked. Confused? You mean? You accept her? The counselor nodded slowly. We expected destruction. Instead, she gave us a new path. We will follow it not because we believe, but because she does. James looked down at Talari, who opened her eyes again. They'll listen to you, he said, but they're watching. I know, she whispered. And I will give them something worth watching. In the days that followed, word spread fast. Cross systems and colonies, hive drones stopped. Attacking battles ended in silence. Ships turned around. Soldiers dropped their weapons. It didn't happen all at once, but it began. And that was enough. Talari stayed at James's farm, recovering, learning. Speaking to the hive through thought, Kira helped her study, reminded her of stories from her past. James stood guard. Building stronger defenses not for war, but for protection, because not everyone agreed with peace. There would always be those who wanted the old ways back, but now there was a queen who did not fear them. One quiet evening, Talari walked out onto the snowy hill. Alone, she looked at the stars above, whispering softly, I was born in a lab, she said. But I live because two people chose to protect me. One gave me life. One gave me hope. And now I will give the galaxy something it never had. A second chance. Behind her, Kira watched from the doorway. James leaned. On the porch rail, sipping tea, they didn't say anything. They just smiled, proud and quiet. The wind blew gently, lifting Talari's silver hair. The golden folds on her back shimmered. She closed her eyes, and the hive felt her thoughts calm. Kind, unshaken, and across 1,000 worlds, her children listened.